Hi everyone! This week's video is different and exciting.
So, if you haven't watched last week's video, we'll link it up this side here. We highly suggest that you go and watch it. But in that video, we mentioned something very, very exciting. So, our borders in South Africa have recently opened, and with that, international travel as well. So, after 6.5 months of waiting, we are finally taking our flight and heading out to Europe. This is all extremely exciting for us and a little bit overwhelming because of this whole situation and environment that we find ourselves in the moment. So we wanted to take this chance and use it as an opportunity to take you guys along with us and show you just what the international travel sphere is looking like at this moment.
So our boarding gates are going to be opening in just a few minutes. We apologize if our footage is maybe not up to the usual standard because we've never filmed in a situation like this before, so let's see how that goes. Just before we head over to our boarding gates, we want to show you guys and tell you guys about everything that we've had to go through to get up to this point. After booking your tickets, there are a few extra steps that you have to take. First things first, do a COVID test. Even if the airlines don't specifically mention that you need one, our advice is don't risk it and rather get a test done. The airline we flew with didn't state it as a requirement, and even when we were doing research about the UK's requirements for flying in, they didn't mention a test. But literally the first thing they asked us for before we could even enter the airport was a negative COVID test result.
The test itself is not a fun experience, but we have to admit that after all the drama you hear about it online, it's not as bad as everyone says it is. But having said that, it's still an uncomfortable experience, and it does feel like they tickle your brains with that swab. We were pretty stoked that we actually managed to receive our results the same day as taking the test. We'll put the link down in the description for where we went to go get our tests done.
Oh, I see my eyes watered now.
Now that we got that out the way, the next step was to fill out a passenger locator form online 48 hours before our arrival in the UK. Along with some other information, this form basically asks you where you'll be spending your quarantine as well as the contact details of the person you'll be staying with.
We were surprised with how empty Durban's international airport was, but that just meant that there was loads of space for those hooligans to play around. Perhaps the real reason for the airport being so empty was that there was literally only 2 international flights flying out of Durban that day. I know, crazy.
I was really impressed with Marek's packing skills. We had 20 kgs to work with, and Marek managed to get every last item I wanted packed into my bag, which was a major effort, all the while staying within the weight limit.
So we've just made it to Dubai. It was a rather long flight, but it was really cool. We're actually pretty stoked that we still managed to get food and everything. We weren't quite sure if you were going to get food on the flight, so we're feeling nice and full. But the plane has actually landed a little bit late. The boarding for the next plane closes in a few minutes, and we have to run to the other side of the terminal.
just made it to the boarding gate in time after a really brisk walk. This airport is very interesting and just huge. There's so much activity and just people everywhere. It's really bustling.
Yeah, so just in terms of the pandemic precautions and everything that they're going through, as soon as we arrived we had to put on these blue
Fresh
masks,
yeah,
as well as these gloves as well. Each person from an Emirates flight gets given, they call it a travel hygiene kit, and in that you've got mask, you've got gloves, and you've got sanitizing wipes as well. So that's what we're going to have to wear. Not too sure how long for, but we have to wear it for the time that we are here in Dubai.
So we've boarded our flight to London now, and the first flight was good. It was quite packed, but there are definitely measures in place to protect all the passengers flying, such as these things that we've had to put on, as well as all the flight crew wearing different clothing and all of that sort of stuff for protection. And there's also sanitization happening constantly. So it was quite packed, but there were measures in place to protect all the passengers on board.
So it's currently 20 past 5 UK time, and we've just been woken up for some breakfast. We've had a wonderful flight so far. The flight is absolutely empty, so each person has just had so many seats. Some people have even had an entire row to themselves. But anyway, for breakfast we have wonderful scrambled eggs, grilled chicken sausages, as well as a bit of baked beans. Why not? We're going to the UK. And to wash it down, we have some lovely apple juice. So we've just arrived in the UK, and this trip is one that's been a long time coming, and we're just so incredibly excited that we've finally arrived. Okay, so for those of you who are wondering, this is where we have landed. So depending on the country that you're flying from or flying into, you have to undergo a mandatory 2-week self-isolation period, which is what we'll be doing for the next 2 weeks. But we can hardly complain, because after these 2 weeks are done, we'll then be able to explore Europe as we please.
So our experience of international travel as it is today is that it's not that different. There's just more requirements. So requirements before you get on the flights are things like your COVID test, different forms you have to fill in. The requirements when you get to the airport and when you're actually boarding your flight is that you obviously wear your mask, sanitize, practice social distancing as much as you can, because the first flight we were on was actually packed, and we were quite surprised when we got on, looking at each other with like wide eyes, like what is going on. There were literally no empty seats anywhere, and luckily we had one empty seat in our row that we could just have a little bit more space on the flight, but otherwise it was pretty packed.
But we do understand though, because the airline industry, as well as many of the other industries in the world, have really taken a major knock during this time, and they really do need to try to recover as much of that money as possible. But we were impressed while on board, being that you were constantly reminded on your screen coming through the intercoms to always put your mask on, put your mask on, put your mask on, sanitize, as well as the cabin crew. The cabin crew were wearing full PPE throughout both of the flights. And another thing that both we as well as other people, I'm sure, were a little bit scared of is what about the air that you breathe on flights. But we were reassured with the captain making an announcement during both flights that the air is actually constantly filtered, recycled and replaced every 2 to 3 minutes. So basically you are literally breathing new air every 2 to 3 minutes, which results in less than a 1% chance of actually being able to catch anything through the air.
And our second flight was literally the complete opposite in terms of how full it was. It was pretty much empty. There were just rows and rows and rows of empty seats. People had rows to themselves to just like spread out and sleep for the whole flight. So that was cool, and I guess it kind of just depends on where you're going and how many people want to go there, which I guess is not really different to how it always has been. And you still get fed your meals, you still get served meals, and you can order drinks. Marek was having lots of fun with all the beers and trying all the different kind of beers. And then you obviously just put your mask on when you're finished eating or drinking and sanitize and all of that stuff. So if you are taking the precautions and the measures to keep yourself safe, it's really nothing to be afraid of to travel internationally. And a lot of people were sort of skeptical about the price differences in tickets these days. From our experience, we didn't have to pay in that much more. We had our tickets booked from months and months ago, and we only had to pay in, I think, an extra 500 for both of us. And so we didn't think that was that much. And from our limited experience of plane tickets and that sort of stuff, from looking around and looking at where we wanted to go, it doesn't seem like the tickets are that much more expensive than they always have been. So we hope that you guys enjoyed this week's video and found it useful and helpful if you're intending on traveling internationally anytime soon. And if you have any questions for us regarding our experience, comment them down below. We'd love to hear from you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys back again next week Friday. Or you just have a bit more. What just happened?